Revealed, 10 sinister true stories from 2025 that haunted the world and cursed their victims in a quiet suburb of Denver, where the picturesque lawns masked the horror lurking just below the surface. A sinister truth was about to be unveiled. Liz, a single mother, barely kept her head above water, juggling a grueling job at the local diner while raising her teenage son, Alex. The vibrant neighborhood was known for its annual block parties and neighborhood yard sales. It was the embodiment of idyllic Americana. But every friendly neighbor hid secrets, dark, chilling secrets. One ordinary night, after collapsing into her bed from exhaustion, Liz's phone buzzed with a terrible urgency. A cryptic text blinked to life: "The neighborhood watch has been compromised. A predator stalks these streets. Stay awake." Liz felt a shiver creep up her spine. Paranoia, she dismissed it. She embraced her dull routine, brushing aside the warning like dust on a forgotten shelf. But then, she couldn't ignore the changes in Alex. His laughter faded, replaced with a hollow silence that echoed through their home. His wide eyes betrayed a trauma she couldn't comprehend. She needed to know what was happening. As the days passed, she became increasingly aware of peculiar gatherings at Mrs. Harris's home across the street. The woman had always been the embodiment of warmth, the sweet lady who baked cookies and organized fun-filled events for the children. Now, as darkness fell, the glow from the windows cast eerie shadows on the street. Liz watched as entranced neighbors crowded together, whispering like they were in a trance, their faces eerily illuminated by flickering candlelight. She shivered, feeling the weight of something insidious rising in her throat. That night, she lay awake, heart racing, unable to shake a sense of dread. She was suddenly certain that something sinister was unfolding behind those curtain-draped windows. Memories of the shared laughter and trust began to dissolve, leaving a sharp sting in their place. Mrs. Harris was not what she seemed. A wave of desperation crashed over Liz as she began to unearth the connections between this motherly figure and local folklore, whispers of a witch who preyed on the trust of families, consuming it until every fragment of joy was snuffed out like a dying candle. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The panic within her grew as she tried to expose this festering web of manipulation. Her friends, once reliable confidants, now looked at her with suspicion, their loyalty bound to the comforting lies swirling around them. At the next neighborhood meeting, Liz stood before the crowd, breathless and trembling, ready to spill the horrifying truth. The air grew dense as she spoke of Mrs. Harris, unraveled folklore, and the terror of losing everything they held dear. Murmurs silenced into suspicions, worry etched into the faces she once trusted. And as Liz locked eyes with Alex, the tension crackled like static in the air. What awaited them if she dared to fight? Would they be exposed to something darker than she imagined? Then, from the window of Mrs. Harris's house, a flickering light caught her breath, and she realized the shadows watching them were not just the outlines of her terrified community. No, they were guardians of an ancient evil, ready to pounce. In her heart, Liz knew she stood on the brink. How far would she go to save her son from being consumed? How deep did this darkness run? As night cloaked the suburb, Liz's heart drummed in her chest, a desperate battle against the rising tide of foreboding. She couldn't shake the image of Mrs. Harris, enigmatic and alluring, beckoning her neighbors into her home, as if weaving a spell of fear and compliance. The faces of once friendly neighbors melted into strange masks, their whispered conversations like rustling leaves, full of dark intent. "Mom, please, just let it go," Alex's voice came, breaking through the heavy silence that enveloped them as they sat in their dimly lit living room, shadows playing tricks with every flicker. There was none of the warmth in his tone that she missed. Instead, it was a blend of fear and something else, something worried. "I need you to trust me," she said, anguish laying heavy on her vocal cords. His head dropped, and for a moment, she caught a glimpse of the boy he used to be, full of promise and laughter, not the haunted figure sitting before her. "Can you tell me what's going on?" His eyes darted to the window, where the silhouette of Mrs. Harris stood, framed against the faint light spilling into the night. The woman always seemed to know everything. It was unsettling how she watched over the neighborhood like a sentinel, her presence curling around them like smoke. I can't," Alex whispered, his voice barely audible. A tremor rolled through Liz, and in that moment, she understood he was caught in the web, too. Mustering her courage, she squeezed his knee. "We need a plan. We can't let her or this neighborhood take you from me." Her words felt less like assurances and more like desperate hopes. That night, she lay awake, barely closing her eyes. The house creaked as if it, too, felt the encroaching danger. The image of Mrs. Harris loomed large in her mind. A sense of urgency pushed her, a drive to protect Alex that ignited a flame in her gut. The next day, while pretending to be normal at the diner, she overheard snippets of conversations. Disjointed phrases floated through the air, heavy with worry. "Have you seen the kids? I haven't heard from Tom since the last gathering. It's such a shame what happened to the Johnsons." Each statement tightened the knot of fear coiling in her stomach. And then, drowning in her thoughts, she remembered an old hymn her grandmother used to sing, words about protecting children from the dark. Maybe it wasn't just folklore, but a call to action, something that lay dormant inside every parent. Summoning her resolve, she decided it wasn't enough to simply be afraid. She had to fight back, to reclaim the joy and trust that had suffocated under the weight of terror. That evening, she donned a heavy coat, a palpable chill wrapping around her bones as she stepped outside. Alex stood by the door, eyes wide and pleading. "What are you doing, Mom?" "I'm going to find out what she's doing to our neighbors," she answered, determination lighting her features. "Someone has to stop this." As she crossed the street, shadows danced along the edge of the lamplight, closing in as she approached Mrs. Harris's door, each step weighed down by dread. She could hear the muffled sounds of laughter drifting through the air, achingly familiar but twisted. The door creaked open before she had a chance to knock. Mrs. Harris stood there, her eyes gleaming with something unfathomable. "Liz, darling. Come in. We've been expecting you." Before Liz could make sense of the invitation, she felt an invisible hand pushing her forward into the suffocating warmth of the gathering. Fear wrapped around her throat like a vice as the door clicked shut behind her. What awaited her inside? What dark truths lay hidden in the soft vanities of suburban life? But it was too late to turn back now. A wave of warmth washed over Liz as she crossed the threshold, an odd sense of welcome that sent her gut churning. The room was filled with what looked like a gathering of family's neighbors she had known for years, all strangely comfortable, laughing and smiling too wide. Their eyes sparkled unnaturally, like glass marbles, catching the faint light from a chandelier that flickered overhead. "Isn't this lovely?" Mrs. Harris exclaimed, her voice syrupy sweet, but it tasted bitter on Liz's tongue. "We rarely have the chance for everyone to come together. But we must all stay connected, don't you think?" Liz swallowed hard, the fear roiling in her stomach. "What is going on, Mrs. Harris?" She tried for firmness, but it came out as a whisper. "Where are the Johnsons? Where's Tom?" Mrs. Harris stiffened for a moment, then a soft, unsettling smile spread across her face. "Oh, dear. You mustn't worry about them. They've just transitioned." The way she said transitioned made Liz's heart drop. Around her, others nodded, their smiles wider, fixated on Mrs. Harris. It was as if they were all puppets, and she was their strings. She scanned the room, looking for Alex, the panic bubbling within her, desperate for a glimpse of him. "You look for your son, I presume?" Mrs. Harris leaned closer, her arrogance dripping like poison. "Don't fret. He's with the others, teaching them the true nature of unity." "Isn't that right, Martha?" "Of course." Martha, the Wilsons' neighbor, chimed in with a lilt that felt like nails on a chalkboard. "Alex is such a bright young man. He understands now. It's all about the community." The walls felt as if they were closing in. Liz struggled to breathe, overwhelmed by the oppressive atmosphere. It wasn't just fear anymore, it was sheer terror creeping into every corner of her mind. "Let me see him. Now." Her voice rose unexpectedly, slicing through the buzzing laughter. Mrs. Harris's smile waned just a fraction, an eerie glint flashing in her eyes. "You must be patient, Liz. He will return to you in time." "Time?" Liz echoed incredulously, her heart hammering. She pushed her way through the crowd, trying to catch a glimpse of Alex amongst the throng. As she moved deeper into the gathering, familiar faces greeted her only with eerie grins. Everyone looked alive yet oddly distant, as if they were living in a dream from which they would not wake. Suddenly, laughter echoed from a door at the end of the hall. It was different from the laughter in the main room. It's more sinister, more real. A host of childhood memories flooded Liz's brain: dance parties, birthday celebrations, and sleepovers, all now overshadowed by dread. Panic surged through her veins. "Alex!" she shouted, desperation rising in her throat. She rushed towards the door, her pulse quickening, each step echoing like a drum in the silence. "Liz, don't!" It was Mrs. Harris, her voice cutting through the chaotic air. "You'll ruin everything." But the door swung open, breathless mystery awaited. Instead of confinement, it revealed a sprawling backyard, filled with children playing. At first, relief washed over her, but it quickly morphed into horror. The laughter was different. It was tainted. And there was Alex, but he wasn't just playing. He was performing. The other children danced around him, faces blank, eyes hollow. They spun, twirled, repeating phrases in a melody that didn't make sense, as if they had lost themselves to something dark and ancient. Liz's blood ran cold. "Alex!" she cried, reaching out for him. But Alex looked past her, as if he didn't see her. "Mom, come join us." His voice was laced with an unfamiliar layer, sweet yet devoid of the boy she loved. Her heart twisted. What did they do to my son? As realization sunk in, Liz felt the walls closing in again. It wasn't a gathering, it was a ceremony. "Come back!" she yelled, desperation bubbling over like hot lava. But Mrs. Harris stepped closer, shadowing her with an unsettling presence. "It's too late for that." With a sudden crackling intensity, the lights dimmed. The laughter faded to whispers. The children's eyes turned toward Liz, glistening with an emptiness that froze her where she stood. Now, she wasn't just fighting for Alex. She was fighting for her soul, trapped in a nightmare draped in suburban idyll. What sinister fate awaited? Would she become another unwelcome guest in this twisted gathering? Just then, she sensed a shift in the air, a forbidden truth knocking at the door of her understanding. A secret powerful enough to bind them all if only she could unravel it before the darkness consumed her. But could she break free? What cost would she pay for calling the truth to light? The children's whispers intensified, echoing against the now suffocating walls of the backyard, pulling at Liz's sanity. Each syllable stretched like a taut string ready to snap. "Join us, join us!" they chanted, swaying as if caught in the grip of an unseen force. Liz's chest constricted at their hollow gaze, a haunting combination of innocence and malevolence. She fought against the magnetic pull towards the group, desperation clawing at her throat. "Alex!" she screamed, stepping closer, though her feet felt glued to the ground. "Come back to me." For a heartbeat, just a heartbeat, his gaze flickered to her. The vibrant spark of recognition flashed in his eyes, twisting her heart with hope. "Mom? I can't." That sharp line, "I can't," was weighed down by something deep and dark. Her child was not entirely there. I could see it, she could feel it pulling her into this dreadful chasm. Mrs. Harris stepped forward, blocking the view of the other children. Her expression morphed, becoming a mask of rage. "You will disrupt everything." The air crackled with tension, chilled by her demeanor. "This is the way. You have to understand, Liz. It's for the greater good." Liz felt her pulse quicken. Greater good? It tasted like bile. This isn't good. This is madness. The laughter in the background turned dark, morphing into a cacophony that scrabbled at her mind. She glanced around, eyes darting to neighbors who once seemed familiar. Their expressions were set, remnants of their former selves stripped away. "You're all under this spell," she realized, voice trembling. "You don't even know this is wrong." But their laughter grew louder. It became a wailing chorus, drowning her out. Feeling faint, she stumbled back. The energy surged, slipping through her fingers as if it were a living creature, twisting away from her grasp. "Liz, stop fighting." Mrs. Harris's voice pierced through the din, laced with a condescending warmth that only fueled Liz's anger. "You'll find your way back home eventually." "Home? This isn't home!" Liz shouted, panicking, searching for Alex amidst the crowd. He was still dancing, entranced, lost in the thrall of this new community. The room twisted around her, a funhouse of shadows and laughter. With every ounce of strength, Liz wrestled through the manic energy, pushing past Mrs. Harris, desperate to reach her son. "Alex. Please. Just listen to me." The transformation had not only seized Alex but seemed to infect the entire gathering. In her blind fury and fear, Liz stumbled upon an unsettling detail. The ground beneath them stirred slightly, the grass bending as if alive, rough soil clawing at her shoes. A surge of dread filled her. What was happening? The power of this gathering was not just psychological, there was something primal, something deeply entrenched in the earth swirling around her. Heart racing, she turned from the dance and rushed toward the children, her hands reaching for Alex. Just as she was about to break through, a hand tightened around her wrist. It was Mrs. Harris. "No. You can't take him." Liz fought back, adrenaline surging through her veins. "Let me go. I'm not losing my son to you." Just then, the other children turned completely in unison, blank faces morphing into twisted masks of glee. Laughter erupted anew, but it carried layers of something sinister, something that made Liz's skin crawl. "Join us, Liz." They harmonized, voices climbing to an unholy pitch. The air thickened, and Liz felt gravity shift. She gasped as the earth beneath her quaked, vibrations rippling outward. Something had awakened, stirred by their gathering, an entity hungry for souls. "Don't let this happen!" Liz screamed, wrenching herself free from Mrs. Harris's grip. She dove into the throng of children, heart pounding with fierce determination. She would reach Alex, but was it too late? As she fought her way through the writhing mass, the whispers grew louder, drowning her senses. "Join us!" echoed in her mind until she could hardly think straight. Memories of family dinners, laughter, warmth, everything twisted into one continuous echo, warping around her. The closer she got to Alex, the stronger the energy became, like a storm brewing. She was almost there, almost pulling him back from the edge. Then darkness surged around her as a shiver prickled along her spine. A shadow passed over them, blocking out the flickering light of the chandelier. Hard in her throat, Liz glanced up. It was Mrs. Harris. Her face twisted in malicious delight, and behind her, an even darker silhouette loomed, monstrous and vast. Liz's breath caught. This was no simple gathering. This was a sinister ritual. Could she still save Alex? Would she be swept into this nightmare without a shred of hope? "Join us," the children sang, their hollow echoes fading into the night. And as Liz watched Alex laugh with that chilling, alien smile, despair swallowed her whole. What had she unleashed upon them all? In that moment, Liz understood the price of truth. But as the darkness wrapped around her, the terrifying question remained: was the truth worth the cost of her soul? The world around Liz pulsated, as if the very air was alive and yearning for something she couldn't comprehend. The laughter from the crowd twisted into a shrill scream that clawed at her insides. She could barely hear herself over the din, her own panic echoing in her ears. "Alex!" She cried again, rasping the name as if willing it to become more than a mere whisper on the wind. But as she pushed forward, every step felt like wading through thick, adhesive mud. The ground beneath her warped and swayed, threatening to swallow her whole with each labored motion. The darkness loomed larger now, pulsating like a heartbeat, each thump resonating with a relentless urgency that sent shivers cascading down her spine. "Join us!" The collective voice of the children rose again, harmonizing in eerie unison, and the sound sliced clean through her resolve, sending a tremor of dread coursing through her. She squared her shoulders, fighting the spellbinding pull. What was this force? What unholy right had ensnared her neighbors, her child? She needed to break the spell, to pull Alex back from whatever abyss awaited. As she pushed through the throng, she felt the heat of their bodies pressing against her, encroaching like a predator with too many eyes, too many teeth. "Alex!" She yelled again, tears stinging her eyes. The thrumming mass swirled around her, and she could see him now, caught in their trance, head thrown back, mouth wide open in a laugh that sent a cold jolt straight to her stomach. That wasn't he, her son, anymore. She was inches away, reaching out, fingertips grazing Alex's shoulder. But just as she thought she could pull him free, it was as though an invisible net snapped tight around her, constraining every instinct she had to fight. Mrs. Harris's voice washed over her, syrupy sweet and laced with malice. "It's already begun, Liz. You can't stop it." The terrified fire ignited in her chest, kindling her spirit. "No!" she gasped, looking around at the mass of children. "You don't have to do this." But their eyes remained vacant, hollow voids that seemed to absorb her words. The shadows cast by the flickering lights danced and stretched, morphing into ghastly shapes that beckoned her with skeletal fingers. The energy surged, she could feel it, thick and suffocating, clawing at the edges of her mind as doubt seeped into her heart. In a sudden burst of defiance, she yanked her arm away, breaking free of the weight that bound her. She lunged toward Alex, grasping his arm, trying to pull him away from the sinister influence. Her legs trembled as she dragged him back, adrenaline flooding her senses. But that laughter, always that laughter, grew louder, drowning out her resolve. "Join us!" They beckoned, and she felt the very ground tremble in response, as if something monstrous stirred beneath the surface, awakening to the resonant chant. Frozen in place, Liz's heart plummeted as she heard a voice, low, guttural, emerging from the shadows. "It is too late for him." The words wrapped around her like barbed wire, slicing through any remaining hope and turning her resolve into ash. Every instinct screamed a warning. She could feel the loathsome presence crawl closer, drawing on her fear, feeding off it. "Get away from him!" she shouted, fury igniting her voice. Alex looked at her, but another layer of shadow pulled him back deeper into the throng. The laughter ceased for a brief moment, leaving only Liz's frantic breaths hanging in the humid air. She had lost precious time. Mrs. Harris stepped forward, casting a dark pall over Liz as she smirked, revealing too many teeth, sharpened into points. "You'll see, dear. We're more than a community now, we are bound by something greater than this world." With one last violent tug, Liz managed to reach both arms around Alex, desperation fueling her strength. "Fight it!" she urged him, her voice a raw whisper of urgency. But he stared back blankly, and the crimson shadows seemed to draw ever closer. Suddenly, thick tendrils of darkness snaked up from the ground, wrapping around Liz's legs, entangling her with a fierce intent. She gasped, catching a glimpse of a face warped, twisted, its eyes glowing with a hungry light. "Join us," it hissed, breath reeking of malice. Fear struck like a lightning bolt, igniting something deep within her. This wasn't just about her son anymore, it was a battle for their very lives against an insatiable hunger that threatened everything she held dear. And as she felt the darkness closing in, choking off her breath, Liz knew that the real fight was just beginning. Would she break free from the clutches of this nightmare before it consumed them both? Or would they both become unwilling participants in the shadows that awaited? Liz's heart raced as the darkness coiled tighter around her legs, suffocating her movements. Panic surged through her, each breath felt labored, as if the very air had thickened into a solid weight. The children drew closer, their laughter morphing into something vile, a cacophony that echoed from the depths of hell itself. She struggled, her fingers digging into Alex's shoulder, but her grasp was slipping. "Alex," she pleaded, desperation flooding her voice. "You have to listen to me. Fight it." But he didn't respond. His vacant eyes held no recognition, just the distant spark of twisted joy that sent chills spiraling down her spine. "Join us," the shrill chorus sang again, the ground vibrating with their sinister hymn. Liz could feel it, an unholy force that pressed against her chest, urging her to submit, to surrender to the shadows creeping closer. She had to resist. With a surge of adrenaline, she twisted her body, trying to break free from the darkness. The tendrils clung fiercely, but she drove her knee into the ground, forcing herself forward while bracing against the weight that threatened to pull her under. The laughter faltered just for an instant, and she caught a glimpse of fleeting warmth in Alex's gaze, like a candle flickering in a storm. "Remember, Alex. Remember me," she cried, her voice hoarse. But doubt whispered in her ears, and she felt the pull within her heart, a terrible longing to abandon her struggle and join the maddening joy of the throng. Suddenly, the ground erupted beneath them, splitting open like a mouth eager to swallow whole. The air thickened with an acrid, choking fog that clouded her vision. Liz stumbled back, but the darkness dragged her steadily forward, deeper into the maw of terror waiting to consume them both. "Please. We have to go," she shrieked, her voice an agonized wail. Just then, a figure emerged from the swirling chaos, a shape that was all too familiar. It was Mrs. Harris, her face twisted into a grotesque mask, eyes glinting with unholy delight. "The sacrifices must be made," she hissed, her smile impossibly wide. "You're too late to save him, Liz. He's already one of us." The cruel reality behind her words dripped with sick satisfaction. "No!" Liz shouted, fury igniting within her. "I want to let you take him." Gathering what little strength remained, she yanked Alex towards her, the tug of darkness almost crushing her bones. With a primal scream, she tore at the shadows entwined around him, feeling the icy tendrils slice against her skin. As if her words were a spark, the darkness momentarily recoiled, releasing Alex from its grasp. He stumbled forward, blinking as if waking from a deep slumber. "Mom," he murmured, a hint of comprehension breaking through the haze. Before she could grasp any hope, the shadows roared back to life, swirling like a storm, engulfing not just her but the entire crowd. Liz felt the ground shake beneath them, a monstrous force rising, resonating with every terrified heartbeat in the vicinity. "Run!" Liz urged, grasping Alex's hand tightly. In that instant, she saw not just the faces of children, but the outlines of something larger lurking just beyond the veil of shadows, a massive, pulsating entity, writhing with inevitable hunger. Its eyes gleamed with a malevolence that knew no bounds, trained solely on her and Alex. Each step she took felt like a dive into cold oblivion, the world around them collapsing into chaos. Shouts erupted from the throng, now conflicted between joy and agony, torn apart by the dread of their own transformation. "Where do we go?" Alex gasped, panic rising again. Liz pulled him closer, her own fear palpable, gnawing at her core like ravenous beasts. "Anywhere but here." She cried, and they darted through the chaos, weaving between the children who seemed frozen between two worlds, light and darkness. But despite their desperate bid for freedom, Liz felt the shadows gathering around them like a suffocating fog. The ground beneath them trembled ominously, and the booming voice of the entity thundered through the air, "You cannot escape your fate." Suddenly, a shadowy hand shot forth, clenching around her wrist with unyielding force. Liz's heart lurched. She could feel reality slipping, dreams replaced by terror, and dread coiling deep within her. Their escape was slipping through her fingers in that instant. A chilling realization crystallized within her heart: this was only the beginning. What awaited them beyond the horizon of shadows was worse than she ever feared. What other horrors lay in wait for Liz and Alex as they stumbled into the unknown? The grip on Liz's wrist tightened, like iron closing around her bones. She could barely breathe as the darkness surged, wrapping around her and Alex, slick and suffocating. There was no escape. No way out. The laughter of the children swelled, a malignant choir that twisted through the air, laughing at her despair. "Fight, Liz. Fight!" Alex cried, desperation spilling from his voice as he struggled against her side. The shadows seemed to pulse with a life of their own, drawing strength from their fear. She felt their pull gnawing at her resolve, whispering sweet promises of surrender. But she would not give in. "Not now. We need to move," she gasped, dragging Alex along, her legs burning with exertion. The ground beneath their feet quaked, sending tremors up her spine. She cast a desperate glance back at the lurking horror, a mass that loomed larger than anything she could fathom. Its shape was amorphous, shifting under the weight of dark intent, and the eyes, oh, those eyes! Countless pinpricks of light that burned with an insatiable hunger. Just then, the fog thickened, wrapping around them like a shroud. Liz stumbled, agony blooming in her chest as a sharp remembrance of laughter pierced through the haze, familiar laughter. Her heart sank as she recognized it. The other children, the sweet voices from before, now tainted by corruption. "Mom, I can't see." Alex's voice trembled, revealing the terror he tried to conceal. Panic. Liz felt it, too. The shadows flickered, as if sensing their hesitation. Casting a frantic look to the side, Liz noticed a narrow alley weaving between two dilapidated buildings nearby. "This way," she announced, dragging Alex toward the darkness that felt strangely inviting. As they slipped into the alley, the oppressive laughter faded, but the pressure still bore down on them. Their surroundings twisted and warped, the shadows elongating, threatening to swallow them whole. Crunching sounds echoed ominously ahead, a crunching like dried leaves, but more akin to bones snapping. Liz's heart thrummed wildly, and she instinctively pulled Alex closer, her fingers quaking. "We have to keep moving. We can't let it find us." But the entity was relentless. It reached toward them, its influence a black wave crashing against their souls. Liz could taste the dread, bitter on her tongue. She felt their sanity stretching, fraying at the edges as shadows whispered, tugging at the recesses of her mind. "Join us, Liz, join us," the voice of Mrs. Harris rang out, echoing somewhere deep within the murky darkness, chilling her to the bone. It was a melody of temptation, so seductive it nearly stole her will. "No!" Liz cried, rallying her spirit. "I will not give in." She shoved Alex forward, the flicker of light from a distant street lamp igniting a hopefulness in her heart. "Look! We can make it." They surged forward, pulling themselves along the walls, aware that the darkness clung to their heels like a wild beast hungry for its prey. The alley twisted, a labyrinth that seemed to mock them, but Liz pressed on, the hard concrete cold beneath her feet. Suddenly, crashing sounds echoed behind them. The entity was close, furious. "Stop!" A child's voice rang out from the shadows, piercing through the madness. "You shouldn't be here." Liz halted, spinning around at the sudden plea. A small figure stood at the alley's end, partly obscured by shadow. Its eyes shone like the moonlit sky, innocent yet ghostly. "Help us," the child whispered urgently. "You can't escape it alone. You need the truth." "What truth?" Liz asked, fear creeping back in as a dreadful silence fell. But before the child could respond, a deafening roar erupted from the darkness, shaking the walls. The pulsating entity surged forward, threatening to close in. "Run!" The child yelled, but Liz felt frozen, caught in a web of choices, fear, and revelations of what lay ahead. What is the truth lurking in the shadows, and at what price might it come? As the darkness loomed and the child disappeared in a blink, Liz and Alex were left with no choice. They had to confront it or perish. Could this be their salvation, or would the truth bind them to the nightmare forever? The darkness shifted, a living entity filled with rage and hunger. Liz felt it crawling beneath her skin, urging her to stop, to submit. She could still hear the child's whisper as if it echoed in her mind, "You need the truth." But what truth? The pressure built, stifling her breath. "Keep going, Liz. We can't stop." Alex pulled at her, his grip frantic, dragging her toward what was left of their salvation. The street lamp flickered erratically, the feeble light swaying like a drowning flame, barely illuminating the maze of dilapidated buildings surrounding them. With every frantic step they took, the sound of snapping echoed louder, like bones breaking or something worse. Liz tried to drown it out, tried to focus on the light ahead. No matter how weak, it was still there. But the shadows pulsed and writhed around them, a dark tide threatening to devour them whole. As they rounded a corner, a sudden cry echoed through the alley, a blood-curdling scream that pierced the suffocating quiet. Liz froze again. It was a voice she recognized mingled with the haunting laughter. "Mom! Help me!" The words were twisted and desperate, the distortion cutting deeper than any blade. "No! Alex, we have to move. We can't." But even as she spoke, every fiber in her being screamed to turn back. Something was happening behind them, a flurry of chaos in the shadows. "Mom, we can help them. Please." Alex's plea tugged like a fishing line, pulling her heart with it. "Help who?" Liz screamed back, her voice trembling. They were losing precious seconds, but the yearning in Alex's eyes held her captive. The shadows flickered again, malevolent whispers rising around them. Liz could hear her name, soft and teasing, mingling with the fading cries. "You're safe here, Liz. You don't need to fight. Just join us." "Stop it!" she shouted, anger tinging her fear. "I am not yours." But the shadows didn't relent. They twisted, coiling tighter around her limbs, drawing her deeper into despair. She could taste the dampness of decay in the air, smell the charred remnants of fear and anger, alien emotions that weren't hers. A new sound broke through the torment, a scratching, like nails on a chalkboard, clawing at her sanity. Just ahead, a door loomed at the end of the hallway, ajar, revealing a glimpse of warm light. "Just a bit further," she urged, grasping Alex's wrist with newfound determination. Every step felt monumental, as if the ground itself resisted their escape. As they reached the door, a gust of wind howled, pushing them back. "No, no, no!" Liz staggered, slamming her shoulder against the doorframe, forcing it open. The light burst forth, blinding, a false sunrise in the thick of the night. They stumbled inside, breathless and wild, but the happiness of their escape was short-lived. The room was cluttered with remnants of broken toys, photographs faded and blurred, as if time itself had rotted within the walls. The air was thick with loss, a heavy reminder of innocence crushed by something lurking just out of view. "Mom, where are they?" Alex whispered, his eyes wide, scanning the chaos. Liz held her breath, dread creeping back in. Pushed to the back of the room was a flickering television showing static, twisting images flashing in and out of focus. What were they seeing? Should they grasp the truth, or would it drown them further into the abyss? I don't know," she murmured, gripping Alex's shoulder tightly. As they stepped further into the room, the echoes came back, mingling with the laughter that had once been sweet. The children's faces floated in the static, eyes wide, mouths silent. Each fragmented glimpse stronger than the last, a warning or a curse. Turn it off. Turn it off. Her mind screamed, but dread held her firmly rooted. Liz, what is happening? Alex cried, but the shadows still reached. Liz's gaze rested on the screen, fear paralyzing her heart. What would emerge? What would the truth reveal? With a trembling hand, she reached for the remote, hesitating just a second too long. What lay in that static could bind them or break them? Would they walk away or be consumed by their past? The laughter grew louder, a storm of voices all pleading for resolution. The room pulsed like a heartbeat, heavy with tension. Liz felt it, the weight of choices pressing down hard. Would the truth set them free, or would it only lead them further into the darkness? The television let out a crackle, sharp and jarring, as Liz's finger hovered over the remote. The faces flickered in the static, smiles stretched too wide, eyes glinting with something unholy. Each fragment of laughter felt like icy fingers trailing down her spine. Mom, please. Alex grasped her wrist tighter, his small hand trembling. The urgency in his voice pressed against her, drowning out the whispers that called her name. Keep your eyes closed. Liz yelled, though she wouldn't be able to close her own. The truth was digging in, clawing at her from the inside, drawing her closer to the screen. Who were these children? Their spirits cried out, woven into the fabric of the static, and they looked so familiar. She breathed, drawn in by the swirling chaos within the boxes of glass and light. We have to see. Another howl of wind seeped into the room, swirling with the heavy air of regret. The temperature plummeted, ice creeping into her bones. Shadows danced in the corners, elongating into menacing forms. They whispered secrets, urging her to join the children in the abyss. Stay with us, Liz. Alex's voice cut through the noise, urgency morphing into desperation. Look! In the corner. She ripped her gaze away from the screen, every nerve in her body screaming at her to refocus. There, in the oppressive dark, stood a figure half-formed, shrouded in shadow. Its eyes glowed, piercing the thick veil of fear. Liz felt her heart sprint in her chest, a wild drum pounding against her ribs. Who are you? She whispered, trying to find strength as her breath quivered. The figure began to materialize, a child no older than Alex. But the face was distorted, a mask of anguish and rage. Help me, it rasped, voice warped like a broken record. They need you. The television flickered once more, and suddenly, snippets of memories assaulted her, flashes of laughter at a playground, the echoes of bedtime stories, and chilling screams that clawed through joy. Every innocent moment twisted into something dark and tainted. Mom! Alex was backing away, dragging her with him. We should go. We can't stay here. Around them, the walls seemed to breathe, drawing them in, gnashing sharp edges like jagged teeth. A sinister energy pulsed through the floor, vibrating against their souls, a reminder of the danger lurking just beyond the light. Each heartbeat resonated with a haunting echo, like a countdown to something truly horrifying. No! Liz shouted, panic overtaking her will. We have to know. I have to find out what happened. Why? Alex pleaded, eyes wide, a mirror of fear that reflected her own dread. We could die. No. She insisted, voice cracking. What if they can set us free? What if we save them, save us? The figure in the corner twisted, its form fading in and out, wavering between despair and hope. The static grew louder, drowning out the fear that tried to root her to the spot. We have to help them, she whispered, more to herself than to Alex. As Liz turned back to the television, she felt the pressure mount, darkness creeping in, but the children began to coalesce, familiar faces endlessly replaying. Her breath hitched, heart racing. What are you trying to tell us? Suddenly, a loud crack split the air, shaking the room. The screen flickered violently, erupting in bright flashes like fireworks gone wrong. Light and shadow collided in a savage dance, the children screaming in unison. "Mom! Run!" Alex screamed, pulling at her desperately. The ground shook beneath them, fissures splitting the floor. Liz felt the urge to flee, but someone was still screaming for salvation. No choice but to confront this nightmare. She stepped forward, lunging toward the remote, determination sparking newfound strength. Just one more second. She called to Alex, who was rooted in place, frozen between two worlds. Then the lights went out. Silence enveloped them thick as fog, unnerving and complete, yet something lingered in the air, a promise of revelation, a thread of fate that could not be torn apart. What awaited in that darkness? Would the truth rescue them from the shadows, or swiftly claim them as its next victims? The darkness hung heavy, wrapping around Liz and Alex like a suffocating shroud. As the silence stretched, Liz's heart raced, sensing that their next move could determine everything. The air buzzed with tension, an electric anticipation that felt dangerously alive. They were stuck between worlds, floundering in uncertainty. "Mom, I don't want to be here." Alex's whispered plea closed like a vice around her chest. She turned to him, hoping to inject a glimmer of hope into his fearful eyes. "We'll figure this out," she murmured, though a dread hung over her like a specter. "We have to face whatever it is that's hiding in this darkness." With a deep breath, she prepared to confront the unknown. They stood at the edge of a precipice, where choices shaped the world around them. It was time to take action. Time to break the spell that had wrapped itself around her son and neighbors. "On three," she said firmly, squeezing Alex's hand for reassurance. 1, 2, 3. With shaky resolve, they together turned toward the flickering television screen as it glowed to life. Images flooded back, the static melting away to reveal children's laughter, images of joy swirling around them. Memories, both warm and painful, were intertwined, grasping at Liz like old friends turned strangers. No, the familiar sound slipped from her lips. "What is happening?" The children danced, their faces contorted in mirth, yet they wore the shadows like capes. "We're calling you. We need you." They chanted in unison, involuntarily drawing her closer, their collective energy thrumming against her bones. Each pulse felt like a beat of desperation, a plea. "Alex," she urged. "Remember our laughter? Remember how we fought against fear together?" His brow furrowed as he looked up at her. "Mom, I remember the stories. The ones where we fought the monsters." She pressed, her voice rising against the murky chaos. With sudden ferocity, Liz stepped closer to the screen. "You don't belong to the shadows," she shouted with raw conviction. "You belong to the light. You're stronger than this." Outside the veil of shadows, the figures wavered, confusion etching their faces, relief whispering through the tension. But Mrs. Harris's presence loomed large from the back of the room, a dark specter roiling in uncertainty. "It won't listen, Liz," she sneered, the shadows swirling around her in defiance. "You're too far gone to save anyone." "No!" Liz screamed, refusing to yield. "I will protect my son. I will protect them all." With a surge of courage, Liz pivoted, her glare finding Alex. "We're fighting together, just like I promised you. Focus on me. Stay with me." Alex's eyes flickered with understanding, recognition sparking through the haze. She saw the fear melt momentarily into determination. "I'm with you, Mom," he shouted, drawing strength from her resolve. Suddenly, the walls trembled, rattling under the forces battling for control. Liz held her breath as dark tendrils reached out, snapping closer. "Fight it, everyone. Fight!" she called out, her heart pounding against her ribs as shadows recoiled from her unyielding spirit. Light began to pierce through the fabric of the darkness, illuminating the room with a soft glow, pushing back against the oppressive weight. It swept through the space like a benevolent wave, peeling back layers of despair and stripping away the power Mrs. Harris held over the others. As the light grew brighter, Liz felt the tendrils dissolve, their grip loosening, and she seized the moment. You are not bound to this darkness. You belong to the joy that fills the air, to the laughter we share. Children's faces shifted, flickering back into focus as they joined in her call, their eyes shining brighter than before. One by one, they turned against the shadows, ripping away the veil wrapped around them. We are free. They cried, voices building into a crescendo. Yes. She shouted back, a wave of relief crashing over her. Hope surged through Liz, empowering her in ways she never anticipated. Above it all, the shadows twisted, writhed, and screamed as the light forced its way through, illuminating even the darkest corners. Mrs. Harris's face twisted in rage, the darkness visibly recoiling from her as it fought to maintain its grasp. Your time is over. Liz roared, and with one final push, she thrust her hands toward the screen, pouring her love, her pain, her hope into the collective will of everyone she fought to reclaim. The light erupted with a blinding brilliance, engulfing the room in pure illumination. Peace flooded in, washing away fear, like a gentle tide reclaiming the shore. Then silence fell. As the last shadows peeled away, Liz collapsed to her knees, gasping for breath, her heart racing as she looked around to see everyone standing together united, once again whole. Familiar faces emerged from the darkness, expressions transformed from fear to gratitude. Mom Alex whispered, eyes shining with tears. You did it. Liz pulled him in, wrapping her arms around him, feeling the warmth of their bond stronger than any darkness had tried to sever. We did it, she whispered, feeling every ounce of pride and love surging through her. A ripple of laughter started from the crowd, bubbling gently, turning into joy. We're free. They cheered, echoing as if reborn from a nightmare. As Liz took a breath, glancing around at the vibrant faces, hope blossomed anew within her chest. They were alive. They were whole. And together, they had fought through the darkness. But as she turned to face Mrs. Harris, her expression morphed into one of defiant rage. You might have won this battle, Liz, she hissed, the shadows dispersing yet still formidable. But know that darkness never truly dies. It doesn't matter. Liz declared firmly, resolve surging through her. As long as we stand together, we can always rise again. Together, they turned away from the remnants of that dark nightmare, hand in hand, ready to embrace a future woven with laughter rather than tears, solid in their newfound trust and unity. This was their moment. And as they walked into the light of day, ready to rebuild what had almost been lost, Liz knew one thing: they had triumphed over darkness and found light in the power of each other, never to be ensnared again. Now, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss future exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support and smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comment section with your reactions and theories about the ending. What did you think happened next? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of these actions. Act now.